It's my hope to get a study guide together for like the stuff we've done, other than GDP, like I gave you the GDP one. All of them. But, yeah, probably, I can give that to you Monday at this time, and then start reviewing it Friday, just because I think it'll take more than one day. Okay. So review Friday, or no, we don't have Friday, today's Thursday. So we review Thursday and then Monday.
Like, give our study guide to us this coming Monday?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's the plan. On Edmodo, I posted some helpful videos. I was gonna pull one up, but the computer just stopped working, so we'll see.
Where is it?
That's what I was just wondering. I think they're coming. There they are. I feel like I'm in a church when I hear those bells.
Everyone has happy outfit.
You guys are so matchy today.
Oh, other side.
Yeah, that's fun to share.
That's also not my headband. Yeah, that's like my Secret Santa got me these beautiful headbands.
They're really pretty. Where are they from?
What?
Where are they from?
Wait, got you all
Till
three of them?
Yeah.
And this one?
No, this one's mine. That one's mine.
Sierra.
I told you that like that dad.
They're really pretty.
You said Tilly.
I was correcting myself. I was correcting myself.
Tilly's? I love Tilly's. Tilly's. It used to be like a West Coast store.
The computer's not working.
Did you get a chance to look at it?
We didn't give it to you. Just kidding.
No.
Never ever.
No more tests.
Wait, isn't that
Have you done
language
language
too? Yeah, you got it. I don't know. No. No, actually, language wasn't bad. It was great. Language was just.
So I'm gonna restart the computer, hopefully it'll come up. There's a video about GDP that I came across, and it like, I think it'll make a lot more sense than my ramblings.
You can just use the TV and go to YouTube.
I've heard all about that. We'll try that. Although, see the remote, this is
I
great.
think it's in here.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's in the podium.
We're gonna demote this person.
It's turned in. Who cares?
I think I did.
The last I when I saw that, I just realized I think I left out like a ton of whatever it was. I can see it. Whatever. While we were, it looks like Hannah Taylor. I know it's like with those fancy M's and N's and H's. I think it's rare. Oh wow.
Yeah, I think Sabrina wrote that.
What does it take for her to write all of that?
Some people just naturally have nice handwriting.
Alright, well, this is loading. We can review a little bit.
Love story.
It's fun.
There's no escape button.
They have like a back button. Yeah, it's an arrow button.
That one.
It's based on the quota.
That one.
I like that one.
Okay, so when you fail a technology gift to someone younger than you, who wants to try and pull this up while I get my earphone? Alright, yeah, so,
Oh, I was gonna do it.
alright, so search, calculating GDP or something along those lines.
Tell me if I'm spelling anything wrong.
You got a T. It's the one by Khan, yeah, this one.
Khan. Ooh, like in Star Trek? Khan.
I'm definitely the math.
The Wrath of Khan.
Okay, so
Or
scan
Kangas.
file.
Oversimplified country that only sells apples, and we measure the
Is this the
GDP
same
in year
person
one.
who, like, wrote
GDP
Noah?
in year one,
This is
we
better.
measure that GDP as $1,000, and all of that is due to apples. And we also know that the price of apples in year one were 50 cents a pound. So it's 50 cents per.
He repeats himself a lot, but.
And
you
let's
guys
say
can-
that we're now, year one has gone by, and even year two has gone by, and we're able to measure the GDP in year two. So GDP in year two is $1,200, and the price of apples in year two, let's just say it is 55 cents a pound. 55 cents a pound. 55 cents a pound. So my question to you is, GDP, the whole point of measuring GDP is measuring the productivity of a country. I mean, we're measuring in terms of dollars, but we care more about just the dollar amount. We really care is, was this country more productive? And if it was more productive, how much more productive was it? And if we just look at these GDP numbers right over here, this $1,000 versus this $1,200, it gives you the sense that, well, at least if you just look at the numbers, $1,200 is 20% larger than $1,000. So if you just look at those numbers right over there, it looks like the GDP grew by 20%. But is that an accurate representation of the productivity of this country? Did it actually produce 20% more goods? And a big clue is looking at this price here. Because some of this GDP actually might have increased just due to price. But that doesn't actually make the country more productive. The quantity, the extra quantity of apples that the country produces is actually what adds to the total productivity. One way to think about it, let me draw a little diagram over here. Let me draw a little diagram on this axis.
Okay, and then he does this backwards from
price.
what we've been doing, he put
And
quantity on the,
P1,
on
so
Y,
if I want to
price
figure out the
on
GDP in year one, I would have the price of apples in year one, that's the only good or service, just to simplify things, times the quantity of apples in year one. And then this right over here, the area of this green rectangle would be GDP in year one. GDP in year one. And then GDP in year two would be the price in year two, so we're gonna go from 50 cents to 55 cents. The price in year two times the quantity in year two. We'll assume some growth has occurred, times the quantity in year two. And so GDP in year two would be the area of this entire rectangle. And if we want to find the difference between GDP in year two and GDP in year one, it would be the difference in area. So it would be what I am shading in blue right over here. And based on the numbers that we went over right over here, the area that I'm shading in blue, so the difference between GDP in year two and GDP in year one, the area I'm shading in blue, would be this 200, the 200 increment. That would be so this area right over here would be that 200. Now, when you look at it over here, you see that that 200, some of it is due to an increase in quantity, some of it is due to an increase in quantity, but a lot of it is also due to an increase in price. So if we really wanted to figure out how much more productive the country got, and we still want to measure GDP in dollars, maybe we can take a measure of GDP that measures year two's GDP, but it does it in year one's prices. So if we could somehow multiply year two's quantity by year one's prices, then we would get this rectangle right over here. We would get this rectangle right over here. And then the difference between that and year one would give us the incremental GDP in year one prices due to quantity, and that's what we care about. We care about total productivity when we're thinking about GDP. We want to say how much more productive did the country get. So let's try to do it with these numbers right over here. So we can figure out quantity 2, we can figure out the quantity in year 2 just by dividing the GDP by the price. Just by dividing this area of the entire blue rectangle and dividing it by the price, that'll give us the quantity. So if we divide 1,200 divided by 55 cents, I'll get my calculator out. So if I do 1,200 divided by 55 cents, this is my quantity of apples in pounds in year 2, and I'll just round it, 2182. So this is 2182. So the quantity in year 2 is 2182 pounds. 2182 pounds. And then I could, so this is equal to that, and then I could multiply this times the price. So this is this quantity, is 2,182 pounds. And then I could multiply it times the price in year 1, in year 1's price. So I'm going to multiply it times P1 is equal to 50 cents a pound. 50 cents per pound. And this will give me, so let's get my calculator, I should be able to do that one in my head, but let's see, 0.5. And I get 1090, I'll just say 10, I'll round it to 1091. So this is equal to 1091. And this is an interesting number. So this is, you could view this as year 2's GDP, GDP in year, or adjusted for, alright, adjusted for prices, or adjusted for price increases, or you could say in year 1 prices, in year 1 prices. And what's useful about this is, this says, look, if prices had remained constant, this is what our GDP would have gotten to. If prices did not increase, our GDP would have gotten to this 1091. 1091 is this area that I drew in pink here. And so now you can say if prices were held constant, the growth in GDP would have been $91, not $200. So this area right over here that let me do it in a color, let me do it in orange maybe. This area right over here, the actual growth, if prices were held constant, would have been $91. We would have gone from $1,000 of GDP to $1,091. So this right over here, that area is $91 of, and we could even call it real growth. Real growth. It really measures the productivity. Now this gives us an interesting, I guess, set of ideas. One idea is to just measure your GDP in the current year's dollars. So this was GDP measured in year 2's dollars. It was year 2 GDP measured in year 2 dollars, year 2 prices. So we could call that year 2's nominal GDP. Nominal GDP, nominal, in name. So it's GDP in name, in that year's prices. But this right over here, where we measured year 2's GDP in some base year's prices, so it allows a real comparison of how much did our productivity actually increase. Our productivity actually increased by 9%. We produced 9% more apples. This we call real GDP. Real GDP, because it gives you a measure of real productivity. It tries to take out price increases. But we'll see in the future, or we might not do it in an introductory course, but in practice it's kind of hard to really measure what the absolute, if you weight this was a simple economy where we only had one product, but if you have many products, actually, gazillions of products in a real economy, and the prices are adjusting and the quantities are adjusting, it's not so easy to figure out how to adjust for price. But the folks running the national income accounts do try to do this, so they get a sense of how much was the actual real growth.
Does that make a little more sense now?
You're right, that kind of repeats itself a lot.
I was watching it last night, or I should say this morning, and little Peter was like snoozing next to me around the living room floor. I wish I could sleep through this too. Okay, so I went through that just because with the whole, why real GDP versus nominal page making a little more sense now. Okay, he drew a pretty picture. Alright, so let's switch over. I think the computer will work now.
Oh, sorry, mine's for here. So constant price is always the first year's price, or like the lowest price?
You can basically pick a year, and all of the examples, they usually go with the first year, but you can use any year as a base year.
Okay.
Any other questions? Okay. Thank you, Sydney, for making it work. Anytime like something electronic in the house like isn't working right, my brother has to fix it. I'm no longer young enough to be up with all this technology. Okay, so this looks prettier on the slideshow. It's not on the screen, but the GDP price index, and it says continue, so I missed it. Alright, is there a question? Okay. So GDP price index, and at the very end of class, this is where we left off, so you should have this in your notes, but in case you missed something, we'll review it real quick. So GDP price index is a measure of the price of a specified collection of goods and services called a market basket in a given year as compared to the price of an identical or highly similar collection of goods and services in a reference year. Excuse me. That point of reference or benchmark is known as the base period or the base year. So that's when we're using like another year's price to figure out the real GDP. So to calculate the GDP price index, you take the basket price index in a given year. No. I still messed up. No, I'll just write that on the bottom. Okay, so we have the price index in a given year, so I'm gonna call it PI for price index in given year. This is very touchy chalk. Okay, so price index in given year equals the price of market basket in specific year sorry, Goodman, I'm writing small, hope it comes up. So price of market basket in specific year over the price of the same market basket in a base year. Okay. So that's what the equation that got kind of messed up on the slide was supposed to say. So, by convention, the price ratio between a given year and the base year is multiplied by 100 to facilitate computation. So, for example, and this is at the bottom of the slide. Okay, there you go. So for example, if we had a price ratio of 2 to 1, so so the price of the market basket is, in year one is 2, and then in the other year, or the base year is 1. It's 2, but then, as I just said, we, multiply by 100. So times 100, so we would get 200. Make sure you guys are paying attention. So, so the price index for this example would be 200. And then, price ratio, if it was 1/3, or 1/3 times, 100, so 1/3 is 0.33. Times 100, so this index would be 33. Here.
If we have to round, like, where would you want us to round?
Just 2 decimal points is fine.
What's like it would it be $33 or like what does the 33 stand for?
It's the price index, so, if we're comparing a basket of goods in one year to a basket of goods in the other, it's basically like how they're comparing to one another. So, I think there's, no, I didn't put the example. Okay, so let me pull out the example. Okay, so, for example, in a pizza only example, our market base consists of only one product, and then, okay, so, so before this, in the book, it gave an example of an economy that's producing a pizza. So, there's a table in here, and I'll just write up really quick. Okay, so that's the year, and then units of output. Okay. So year one, we produced 5 units, year 2, 7, and year 3, 8. 4, we produced 10, and then 5, we produced 11. And then, this is price of pizza per unit. So, in the first year, we sold pizza for $10 a pizza. The second year, 20. In the third year, 25. The fourth year, 30. And then the fifth year, for 28. Okay. So then the price index. So the price index, and these numbers are just the columns they're associated with. So the price index is year 1, and that's equal to 100. So, so year times the times 100, no, we'll get to that. Okay, and then for unadjusted, or I'm just gonna write nominal GDP. And my column says that. Nominal GDP. And then that's column 1 times column 2. And then 5 is adjusted or real GDP. Okay, so for this, so this is, we're using year 1 price of 100 times the units. So what would this next one be?
300.
Mm-hmm. And the next one? Mm-hmm. And then,
What did you say here?
yeah, what's on my word? The 100 by the price, so we're using year 1 as our base year. So, since year 1's our base year, we're using their, price, or their, output, times the price. Yeah,
Is it already times 10,000?
it is. It is actually, and feeling it like today, okay. Let me walk you through the problem. Okay, so okay, so there are 2 ways, so how we determine real GDP in our peak economy. One way is to assemble the data on the price changes that occurred over various years. So that'll be column 2. The price is changing. And then use them to establish the overall price index for the entire period. Then we can use the index in each year to adjust for nominal GDP for real GDP. So, so this is price index. Okay, so I was like, so it's, so price index in year 2 is $20, and then price index in year 3 is 25. So for the price index in year 2, we would put 20 over year 1's price. I quit. 20 over year 1's price, which is 10 times 100. So that equals 200. So that's the price index. So taking this over, so for year 3, price index would be 25 over 10 times 100. Equals 250. Okay, that makes more sense now. And then since we're using year 1 as the base year, the price, like everything will be the same in that column. And then because my columns are so